The film Can I Kiss You positions itself as a coming-of-age first love story wrapped in a quiet, intimate setting that feels both relatable and emotionally charged for anyone who has ever experienced the nervous tension of wanting to express their true feelings to a close friend. At its heart are Megan and Dharma, two young women whose friendship becomes the backdrop for one of the most classic themes in LGBTQ storytelling, the yearning for authenticity and connection in the face of fear and uncertainty. The plot, though simple on the surface, a movie night turning into a moment of confession, speaks to a universal queer experience of longing for a friend, of strategizing the perfect moment to reveal feelings, and of hoping for reciprocation without risking the friendship. In this way, Can I Kiss You is less about shock or melodrama and more about tenderness, hesitation, and the courage it takes to act on one's truth. From the outset, the audience is invited into Dharma's interior world. We learn that for months she has been quietly, almost painfully, attracted to Megan, her closest friend. This is a deeply familiar scenario in LGBTQ narratives where friendships become both safe havens and sources of torment for closeted or questioning individuals. The detail that Dharma creates a plan to get Megan alone underscores how deliberate and nerve-wracking these moments can be, how much mental rehearsal and emotional labor goes into a single act of vulnerability like asking for or initiating a kiss. This isn't framed as predatory but as deeply human. Dharma is tired of unrequited longing and wants to be brave enough to take a step toward intimacy. Megan's portrayal complements Dharma's. She is warm, magnetic, and perhaps unknowingly inviting. Her bewitching eyes and magnetic smile hint at subtle reciprocation, or at least an openness that Dharma picks up on. The narrative tension hinges on whether Megan feels the same way, but the tone is gentle and empathetic, never manipulative. By setting the stage as an innocent movie night, the film draws from a common queer trope. Ordinary, everyday spaces become transformative moments where hidden desires finally find expression. Movie nights, sleepovers, or long drives often serve as settings in LGBTQ media because they provide private, liminal spaces outside of public scrutiny where vulnerability feels safer. This aligns with real-world experiences. Many queer people find that intimate, casual settings with trusted friends are the first places they test out expressions of their identity. In its SFW reading, the soft scene and first kiss function symbolically as rites of passage. The kiss between Megan and Dharma is not framed as sensationalist or gratuitous, but as a culmination of emotional buildup, a gesture of mutual recognition and acceptance. It resonates with the first kiss archetype seen in countless heterosexual coming-of-age films, but carries an added weight here because of the stakes for queer youth: the fear of rejection, outing, or damaging a treasured friendship. By normalizing this as a tender, relatable moment, Can I Kiss You contributes to LGBTQ representation that centers emotional authenticity over fetishization. Thematically, the film also explores longing and self-discovery. Dharma's internal journey, from months of silent pining to finally taking action, mirrors the process of coming out to oneself and others. Many LGBTQ individuals spend years silently harboring feelings, convinced they cannot be acted upon before mustering the courage to make them known. The catharsis of the scene lies not only in the kiss but in Dharma reclaiming her agency, deciding she deserves to express her love rather than suppress it. Megan's response, while not detailed explicitly in the synopsis, is framed as transformative. The innocent kiss becomes something much more, implying mutual desire and a night of emotional closeness rather than a one-sided confession. This mutuality matters because it shifts the narrative from one of unrequited love or trauma to one of affirmation and shared exploration. In terms of LGBTQ culture, Can I Kiss You is emblematic of the way contemporary queer cinema is moving toward softer, more humanized portrayals of same-sex attraction between women. Older depictions often relied on tragedy, taboo, or hypersexualization, whereas newer films lean into emotional realism, supportive friendships, and slow-burn intimacy. This evolution reflects broader societal shifts where LGBTQ relationships, particularly between women, are increasingly visible and normalized, especially in streaming media targeted at younger audiences. The film's emphasis on tenderness and mutual consent also resonates with current conversations in both queer and mainstream communities about healthy relationship dynamics. By titling the movie Can I Kiss You, the narrative literally foregrounds consent as part of the romantic arc. This stands in stark contrast to older cinematic tropes of spontaneous, non-consensual kisses as romantic gestures. Here, Dharma's plan to be alone with Megan is not about ambushing her but creating a safe space for mutual exploration, and the framing of the first kiss as hesitant and innocent reinforces that consent is both sought and freely given. This emphasis on consent is particularly meaningful within LGBTQ contexts, where non-consensual outing or unwanted advances can carry heightened risks. Another rich layer to this story is its reflection of generational change in LGBTQ representation. The plot evokes memories of groundbreaking lesbian or bisexual storylines from the late 1990s and early 2000s, Think But I'm a Cheerleader or Imagine Me and You, but updates them with more overt empathy and emotional literacy. The characters here are not caricatures or tragic figures, but multi-dimensional young women navigating feelings many in the audience can relate to. This provides viewers, especially younger queer audiences, with positive scripts for their own lives, showing that vulnerability can be met with tenderness rather than catastrophe. The film also contributes to the ongoing reclamation of sapphic narratives from the male gaze. By centering Dharma's longing and framing it through her emotional and psychological experience, Can I Kiss You resists reducing the characters to objects of spectacle. Instead, it prioritizes their interiority, making their emotional world as rich and significant as their external actions. This resonates with broader movements in queer media, to tell stories by us, for us, where the emphasis is on authenticity and emotional truth rather than titillation. Furthermore, the story invites discussion about friendship as a crucible for queer self-discovery. Megan and Dharma's bond begins as platonic, making the shift to romance fraught, but also deeply meaningful. This reflects the lived experiences of many LGBTQ individuals, for whom close same-gender friendships in adolescence or young adulthood become the first sight of recognizing same-sex attraction. The tension between friendship and desire adds complexity, showing how queerness can blur boundaries in ways that are both exhilarating and scary. In a broader sense, Can I Kiss You also engages with cultural conversations about first times and the diversity of those experiences. By portraying Dharma's first girl crush not as an exotic anomaly but as a natural, deeply felt milestone, the film normalizes bisexual or lesbian awakenings as part of a continuum of human experience. This contributes to dismantling the persistent double standard, where heterosexual first loves are celebrated as sweet and innocent, while same-sex first loves are stigmatized or eroticized. The final act, where an innocent kiss blossoms into a night of closeness, symbolically represents the emotional richness of queer intimacy. Even though the synopsis hints at escalating passion, a SFW interpretation frames this as the emotional afterglow of mutual confession and connection, rather than explicit content. This focus on slow, intense emotional bonding reflects a common reality of queer relationships, especially first relationships, where emotional intimacy often precedes or outweighs physical intimacy. This depiction can be especially affirming for viewers who may not be ready for or interested in sexual content, but crave stories of emotional connection and mutual vulnerability. In sum, Can I Kiss You operates as a gentle but powerful narrative about yearning, courage, and the transformative potential of honest communication between two women. It highlights key themes central to LGBTQ culture: the risk of coming out to a friend, the sanctity of consent, the normalization of same-sex first love, and the reclamation of sapphic desire as something tender and human rather than forbidden or sensational. By focusing on Megan and Dharma's interior lives and the slow build-up to their first kiss, the film invites audiences into a deeply relatable experience of queer awakening. It stands as an example of how contemporary LGBTQ cinema can be both soft and radical. Soft in its portrayal of emotional tenderness, radical in its insistence that such tenderness is ordinary, valid, and worthy of representation. For queer viewers, it offers a hopeful script of what could happen if vulnerability is met with care. For straight viewers, it offers empathy and insight into a universal human story told through a queer lens. In either case, Can I Kiss You underscores that at its heart, queerness is about connection, authenticity, and the courage to ask for the love you want.